Hey guys, I'm Eric with Extreme Terrain. In this video, we're going to do a review and install of this Rough Country 3.5-inch bolt-on suspension lift kit with lifted struts and premium N3 shocks for all 2007 and later four-wheel drive Tundras, except the TRD Pro Edition. Now, this kit from Rough Country is really ideal for the Tundra owner out there who is maybe looking to do some off-roading with their Tundra. Not only are you going to get added ground clearance, but you're going to have a more sophisticated setup that's going to allow for better handling characteristics and flexibility when you're out there on uneven terrain. Now, lift kits can range from the very basic spacer blocks to the more sophisticated setups that replace a lot of components, and this kit from Rough Country definitely falls into that latter category. We're going to be replacing our control arms, front struts, rear shocks. We're also going to be adding spacer blocks to the rear and a number of other spacer blocks to the front end, all of which are going to give you a premium lift from Rough Country. Now, not only are all these components made from top quality, the kit is also very comprehensive. It's going to give you everything you need to properly set up your truck for this 3.5-inch lift for extreme terrain running. Now, what I mean by that is it includes spacer blocks not only for your bump stops, but also for your front differential as well. It's going to correct the CV axle angle to prevent any adverse conditions when you're out there putting a lot of torque to the front end. Now, also supporting that front end geometry is going to be the replacement of the upper control arms. That's going to allow better flexibility without any weird steering situations coming into play. As well as on the rear end, you're also going to have these tapered spacer blocks that are going to correct the pinion angle of your rear axle so that when we're extending it down that 3.5 inches of added lift, you're not going to have anything funky going on from the drive shaft to your rear axle. Now, whether you're still driving on the highway or you're taking your truck off-road, that premium ride quality is really going to come through with the N3 shock design that goes into both the front struts and the rear shocks. That includes 10-stage variable valving and a nitrogen gas charge, giving you that premium ride quality. Now, priced right around $1,000, this Rough Country kit is very aggressively priced, considering the overhaul that you're getting and all the components that you're replacing on your truck and that added ride height, giving you better ground clearance and the ability to add larger tires to your truck. Now, the largest tire you can run with this kit is a 33-inch. You will have to do some minor plastic trimming, especially if you're running a larger tread pattern like a mud terrain. Now, as far as the installation goes, guys, I'm giving it a very solid 3 out of 3 wrenches on our difficulty meter. This kit is not for the faint of heart. There's a lot of work that's going to go into this and some tricky aspects to this installation. Of course, follow along with us as we do it, and I'll do my best to show you how you can get this done at home. But you're going to need a substantial amount of tools and maybe a couple of things you might not have in your tool chest. We're going to take a look at those in just a second. And of course, as we're going along, make sure you're following all the torque specifications from both Rough Country and from Toyota. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, guys, tools you're going to need for this installation include an electric impact wrench, a pneumatic impact wrench, needle nose pliers, a set of regular pliers, a hammer, an extension, a small flathead screwdriver, a swivel socket, a whole range of sockets ranging from 10 millimeter all the way up to 24 millimeter, a couple of hand socket wrenches, 1/2, 17 mil, 19 mil, 22 mil, and a couple of ratcheting wrenches ranging from 16 to 19 millimeter, a breaker bar, and a pair of pry bars. All right, guys, now once you have your truck safely lifted and supported and tested, make sure it's not going to move on you. We're going to go ahead and get started. Basically, all we're going to do is just the bare minimum we need to do to get components out of the way so we can remove our strut and go from there. So go ahead and grab a 19 mil socket and let's get started. All right, guys, now with your 19 mil socket, we're going to go ahead and remove this bolt here. That's part of our sway bar end link. All right, guys, now we're going to have to disconnect our ball joint here, but before we can do that, you got to remove this cotter pin. So go ahead and grab some needle nose pliers. All right, guys, now you need a 19 millimeter socket for the castle nut here for your upper ball joint. And once you have that loosened, we're not going to remove it all the way. You want it a few threads on, because we're going to tap right here with a hammer and see if we can get our ball joint to come loose. All right, guys, now go ahead and grab a pry bar. We're going to stick it in underneath the hinge pin for our upper control arm, and we're going to pull down on this to relieve the tension here so we can just kind of take the nut off by hand. All right guys, now you have four 14mm nuts that we're going to take off the top here, these studs that are holding the top part of our strut in place. These two back ones are probably going to be hard for you to see. If you're blessed with a relatively clean truck like we are, once you break them loose, you should be able to spin them off by hand. All right guys, now we're gonna undo the clamp up here that's holding our brake line to the upper control arm just to give ourselves a little bit of slack. Use a 10mm socket for this. All right guys, now to get our skid plate off, first we're gonna go after this locking clip right here and these two bolts. So just have a flathead screwdriver, pull this one out. Now for these two bolts, you're going to need a 10mm socket. All right guys, now we have 3 more bolts. They're kind of recessed up in these holes here, and one on the back. You're going to need a 12mm socket for those. All right guys, now last, once you have all that hardware removed, go ahead and push up on the front and to the left. A couple of recessed hooks up top there that are kind of snagging the front end of your skid plate on. All right guys, now we're going to use a 24mm socket here just to loosen up this nut, and we're going to do the same thing for the other bolt that's holding the bottom of our control arm to the frame. We're just going to loosen them, we don't want to remove them. All right guys, now we're going to remove this nut here. That's the bolt that's holding on the bottom of our strut to the control arm. You're going to need a 22mm socket for this. All right guys, now go ahead and remove the bolt. All right guys, now we have that lower bolt out. You should be able to lift the strut up a little bit to get it unseated down below, drop it down a little bit, and we're going to pivot it out the top and pull it out. All right, so we're going to put the spacer blocks in here between our sway bar bracket here and the frame mount. So we're going to loosen up the bolts on the other side. We've done that already. Don't want to take them out completely on the other side, just loosen them. We're going to take these bolts out, slide the block in there, and there are new bolts that come in the kit that we're going to reinstall it with. And we just got that started by hand, a couple of turns, a couple of threads just to hold it up. And then you can go ahead and repeat this on the other side before we tighten it up. All right, now to go after our spacers here for our differential mounts, you're gonna need a 19mm socket here, and you're also gonna need a 19mm wrench up top because it's basically a loose nut that is securing the other end of this bolt here. Unfortunately, there isn't like a captured nut or threaded piece as part of the framing that would make this a little bit simpler, but if you come up here kind of parallel to your steering linkage, you can slide the wrench in up here on top of the frame rail, and once you get it on the nut, just kind of hold it in place with one hand and undo this bolt here. Now, as you can see here, I have pull jacks supporting our differential mounts here. You're gonna need to do that because once you undo both of these, it's gonna wanna drop considerably. Even though you still have a third point of attachment, you don't wanna put too much stress on over there. Now for this one, guys, this one's really tight. You're gonna wanna take your wrench and kind of from the front, go over top of the frame rail. Now if you reach your hand in back behind the frame rail, you'll be able to put your fingertips on that nut back there and kind of guide your wrench in so you have a bite on it there. And go ahead and take your impact wrench and undo this bolt. All right, guys, now however you have this supported, go ahead and lower it down. You're gonna have to do it evenly. You're not gonna be able to do it one at a time. And we just want to lower it just far enough to get our spacers in there, which are about 1 inch. All right, now go ahead and slide it up in there, guys. And get one of the new bolts out of the kit. They're going to be slightly longer, obviously. We're going to reuse these black large washers that came out with our factory bolts. All right, guys, now before we start tightening this up or raising this side up at all, you're gonna wanna get the spacer in on the other side, because like I said, you kinda have to do this evenly. All right, now this side's a little bit tighter, mainly because we have that third point of contact that we haven't really done anything with. Keeping it kinda tight, but you should be able to get it down just enough. Get your other spacer in here and get the other bolt started. All right, guys, now I've adjusted the pull jacks to get them kind of even up here, and we've got our bolt most of the way up. Gets a little snug. If you want to give it a tap with a mallet, basically what we're looking for is you can feel back here with your fingers. There's like a little raised portion on the top of the frame rail where the hole, and I can just feel it's kind of flush. So I'm going to give this a couple more taps so that we have some threads exposed and we can start the nut that comes with the kit on there. Now I check that, and I can feel the bolt protruding through there, so we're going to go ahead and get it started. All right, guys, now we have the nut started on the driver's side mount. It's very tight up in here. I had to do it with my fingertips, so give yourself some patience while you're doing this, getting that nut started up top there. You're going to need a 22mm crescent wrench to secure that nut and a 21mm socket to tighten up these bolts. All right, now we're going to tighten up the passenger side as well. All right guys, now we're going to go and remove our front control arm or upper control arm here. You're going to need to get access to the bolt, so go ahead and grab either a flat blade screwdriver or a trim removal tool if you have one. And we're just going to lower our front splash guard here. Just let that hang down. Now we can access the bolt here. You're going to need a breaker bar or a tool with a lot of leverage to get this off, and you're also going to need 22mm socket on both sides. All right guys, now I have a 22mm crescent on this side, and I get my breaker bar with socket on this side. All right, work that loose. It's a little bit tight in here too, because you have this cable. It's kind of has a little bit of slack. You can push it back. All right guys, now the tricky part here, we're gonna have to walk this bolt forward, and it's probably gonna have to go between this cable here and the inside of our wheel well liner. But get a pry bar or something with some leverage here and pry this forward. Now you're not gonna have enough room to walk this washer with it, so keep that tucked back and just work on the bolt here. All right guys, now the two major components that we are replacing on the front end of our truck here, we have off of our truck, the factory parts, and I want to throw them up here on the table, give you a real quick visual comparison between our factory parts and our new stuff from Rough Country. Now really the main difference you're going to see is you're getting much more stout, sturdy stuff from Rough Country. The strut tower is a couple of inches longer than the factory one. That's where most of your height's going to be coming from the front end. And the upper control arm, you're gonna notice, is quite a bit beefier. It's several pounds heavier than your factory piece, and that is the solid tubular steel compared to our factory arm that is not quite solid tubular steel like this. It's a little bit hollowed out. I can stick my fingers in there. It's kind of like steel that's kind of bent around and molded. I don't really know the technical term for that, but as you can see when you compare it, I can get my finger down in this groove here. It's not a solid bar like you have with the new piece from Rough Country. So other than that, that's really what we're getting here is the added ride height and a little bit better ride quality out of our Rough Country kit. So let's go ahead, we're gonna throw some grease into the ball joint here for the control arm, and we're gonna mount it in the truck. All right guys, now we're gonna put spacers in our bump stops. So to get these bump stops, they basically just unscrew out, but you're gonna need a nice wide set of pliers. Preferably longer handle ones like this that have more leverage to them. Once you get that loosened, they should come right out. Unless you have a higher mileage truck with some corrosion on here, in which case you're going to want to prep it with some WD-40 or PB Blaster or something like that. It comes out like that. I'm going to take one of these new spacers from the kit and just thread it on. Gonna be a little tighter going back on because we have paint on the threads of our new spacers. Get it on there as far as you can by hand. All right guys, now before we can get our upper control arm installed, we need to put some grease in the ball joint fitting. So go ahead and get a small screwdriver, just pop this cover up, and then we'll have a grease fitting underneath there. And as you can maybe see, there's a little bit of movement in our boot there. It's letting us know we're getting filled up with grease in there. All right guys, now something you might want to try here is holding the bolt up here, getting it kind of set, and then bringing the control arm up. All right, kind of got it started in there with my fingers. Again, keeping the washer up against the hinge point for your control arm because you don't have any room for it to the left. Guys, now go ahead and grab your factory washer that we took off. And the nut. All right, we'll go ahead and get these tightened down. And again, we're using 22 millimeter on both sides. And with this one, you guys, you're gonna wanna make sure you torque it to spec. All right guys, now we're gonna put our new Rough Country strut into place. To get proper alignment or fitment up into the bracket up there, look for the word out with an arrow pointing outward. This would be the side that's facing you once you put it inside. There's also a little nub here on the black rubber gasket here that goes between this top plate and your spring. All right, now use the nuts that were provided in the Rough Country kit. We're gonna get them started. All right guys, now using my floor jack, I'm gonna lift up on the lower control arm a little bit. And we're gonna try and get our alignment for the lower end of the strut a bit more closely aligned for where our bolt's gonna go through to attach it to the lower control arm. All right, we're pretty close guys. I'm just gonna use a little pry bar here to kind of get the last little bit of alignment here. All right, we'll get the nut on the lower strut bolt. We'll tighten that up in a second. All right guys, now we're gonna lift up a little bit more so we can start working on the alignment of our sway bar and also give us some more threads up top for the studs on the top of the strut. Right now that we lift it up, guys, you can see how much more threading we have from where I started these nuts by hand. So I'll go ahead and cinch them down even further. Then use a 15mm wrench to tighten these down. All right guys, now I'm kind of bracing this steering knuckle with my knee. Get a pry bar up there, and we're gonna pull down, try and get our ball joint mounted in here. We're using a new castle nut and washer provided in the kit. All right guys, now we're gonna tighten this up here in our ball joint. We used a 19 on our factory stuff. The new castle nut here from Rough Country is gonna take a 22mm socket. All right, got our new cotter pin from the kit. All right guys, and let's tighten up the lower strut bolt. Need a 22mm here. All right guys, now we're gonna reconnect the brackets for our brake lines. Now you have a threaded post here on your Rough Country control arm. So grab one of these 11mm lock nuts out of the kit. Go ahead and tighten it down. All right, I'll do this lower bracket. We're just going to reuse our factory bolt here. And this one's a 12mm. All right guys, now at this point we've pretty much installed everything we can up here on the driver's side front. Now before we go, a couple last steps we're gonna do is we're gonna reconnect everything having to do with the sway bar. But before we do that, everything we just did here on the driver's side, go ahead and repeat that on the passenger side. We don't want to tighten up anything with the sway bar on this side because it's all connected to the passenger side. It might make things tighter and a little bit more difficult to work over there. So get yourself up to this point on the passenger side, then we'll come back and cinch up our sway bar and tighten up our lower control arm bolts. All right guys, now we're going to reinstall the bolt for our sway bar end link. I'm going to use 2 pry bars here just to kind of line it up. And I've got a friend here, it's going to be my third hand. All right, with the 19mm socket, go ahead and tighten up our factory bolt here. All right, now that we have our end link tightened up, go ahead and tighten up your mounts right here where the sway bar mounts to your frame. Again, this is a 19mm socket on here. And then repeat that on the other side. All right guys, now we're gonna tighten up our lower control arm bolts using 24mm tools. Then repeat that on the passenger side. All right guys, now go ahead and slide your skid plate up, get it between the plastic trim piece. Should hang there. All right guys, I have a short 13mm socket. I'm gonna seat the bolt and washer in there and run it up inside like this. Put your spacer on. And just get it started a couple threads so we can do the other 2 out on the sides. All right, now here we're on the right side. Doing the same thing, getting our bolt started up in there. Slide the spacer up over the hole. And repeat that on the other side. And go ahead and tighten them down. All right, replace these screws at the front here using a 10mm socket. And then install your pop clip. Okay, so now we're at the back of the truck. We're gonna do what we need to do for the rear lift part of this kit. Basically, we're gonna be swapping out our factory shocks for some new Rough Country Premium N3 shocks. We're also gonna be putting the lift block in between the axle and the leaf springs. And we also have some brake line kind of relocation brackets that are basically going to give us a little bit of extra room, because once we add the lift and the axle goes down a little bit, those brake lines are going to become really tight, and you don't want that going down the road, for obvious reasons. So once we put those relocation brackets in there, it gives us a little bit more slack. So that's pretty much sums up what we're going to be replacing here in the back end. So let's start at the shock absorber. All right guys, to get the bottom bolt out, you're going to need a 17mm tool on both sides. Now the bolt's going to be under tension for right now, so it's fine to leave it where it is. We're going to work at the top end, and that'll relieve some of that pressure. Now to undo the upper end here, guys, you're going to need a 17mm wrench up here on the nut, And you're gonna need 19mm wrench here to kind of stabilize the shaft so it doesn't twist as you're undoing the nut. So get your 19mm crescent on there. I have a ratcheting wrench, which is a great tool for this job. That bolt off, take off the top bushing. Now allow us to lift up on the shock here, and then we can, now that we won't have any pressure on that lower bolt, we can get that out. All right, now that we have our factory shock off the truck, I want to put it up here on the table, give you a quick side-by-side comparison. Not a whole lot of difference to really point out here, other than the fact that our new premium N3 shock from Rough Country is a little bit longer. Obviously, you're going to need that with the lift, and you might be noticing a huge difference if you are installing this kit on a higher mileage truck. Our truck here only has about 19,000 miles on it, so the components are still relatively fresh, like the bushings up top here. They still look like they're in really good condition. However, if you're pushing 60, 70, 80,000 miles on your truck, these might start looking pretty worn out and tired. Obviously, you're getting fresh new bushings with the new shock, so let's go ahead and get them mounted on the truck. All right, guys, now we're gonna take out the bolts for these 4 mounting points for our brake lines. We're gonna put extension brackets in these. So let's do that before we droop the axle. And I'm using a 12mm socket for these. All right, you're gonna have one of these on each side, so again, 12mm socket. Let's go ahead and do that on the other side as well. And if I didn't mention it already, go ahead and remove the shock absorber from the passenger side. Now we're gonna go ahead and take out the nuts that are holding on our U-bolts, this bracket here that are securing our axle to the leaf springs. And you're gonna need a 19mm socket for this. And go ahead and remove your factory U-bolts. All right, guys, now obviously before we did all that with the U-bolts and their nuts, you want to make sure that your axle is supported. We have pull jacks up here because our truck is up on a lift. If you're doing this at home, your truck's on jack stands, a good place to have your floor jack is right here underneath the center of the rear axle or underneath the differential. And that way you can lower it using the floor jack and it's nice and uniform. With pull jacks, I have to go back and forth a little bit because you want to drop it evenly. And we only want to drop it just far enough so that we can fit our spacer blocks between the axle and the leaf spring. All right, guys, now we're going to slide our spacer blocks in here. Just something to point out is that one end of the spacer block is a little bit shorter than the other. The shorter end is the one you want towards the front, and that's in order to maintain proper pinion angle for your rear axle. And then go ahead and get the block in on the other side. All right, once you have both blocks in, go ahead and start raising your axle. And you want to make sure that the pin underneath the leaf spring goes into place. And if you need to kind of wiggle the axle back and forth a little bit, you should have a little bit of play in order to do that. All right, guys, once you have your axle raised up so it's nice and snug up against the spacer block and your leaf spring, go ahead and grab the new U-bolts out of the kit and drop them into place. should be able to get this bracket up on there. You have to pinch the U-bolts a little bit. And because there's that tension, because the U-bolt is kind of spreading outward a little bit, you pinch it in, the bracket will stay in place once you have it mounted up. And go ahead and get the lock washer or flat washer and lock nuts that are included in the kit started by hand. Because they're lock nuts, you're only going to be able to get them on so far by hand. Right now, to tighten up the new hardware, you're going to need a 22mm socket. And the rule of thumb here, guys, is you're going to want to exercise good trigger control. You don't want to cinch up one side too tightly. You want them nice and even, so you want the same amount of bolts sticking through so that this goes up nice and straight and even on both sides. And go in a cross pattern just like you would when you're putting your tires back on your car. All right, guys, so now we're going to do our brake line relocation brackets. Go ahead and grab one of these. We're at the driver's side e-brake out here on the end of the axle. Go ahead and grab the factory nut and tighten it down with a 12mm socket. All right, guys, now go ahead and flip the bracket back down. Up into place here. And go ahead and grab a bolt and nut from the kit. And tighten it down. You can use either a 13mm or 1/2 inch on each side. And then repeat this on the other side. All right, now grab this bracket out of your kit. We're going to mount it here because as you can see, there's no way we're going to reconnect that to its factory mounting point. There'd be too much tension, and I'm kind of pulling down on this right now. So that's what we're looking to alleviate with these relocation brackets. So just grab your factory bolt. We'll get that started there, and then we can bring this down. Using one of these bolts from the kit. That's a lock nut right there, so we're gonna have to get a tool and we'll tighten these down. All right, now it's a 12mm for your factory bolt down here. And you can use either a 13mm socket or a 1/2 inch socket for the hardware included in the kit. And that's on both sides, both the nut and the bolt. All right, now we're going to do this one on top of the differential here. Again, using our factory bolt to mount this bracket. kind of like S-shaped bracket to the differential itself. And then grab a nut and bolt from the kit. All right, now to do these down here, guys, again, we're going with these clamps here. Get it behind the upper tab and then grab your factory bolt. And a new bolt from the kit. Nut. And tighten it down. All right, and we'll just do the same thing, but on the right side. And don't forget to tighten up the bottom one here. All right, guys, now with our new shocks from Rough Country, a couple things I want to point out. We're gonna have all new hardware up the top here where it mounts up at the top. Now you're gonna want to grab one of these kind of, not completely flat, but close to flat plates there, and then get your rubber bushing. And then this one here that's shaped like that with the rubber bushing that fits inside of it with the kind of the same shape in the bottom, goes on top like this. And that's basically going to be the order of how they go. Now you're going to have this off when we put this up into place. This is going to be below the shock mount on the frame, and then this goes up top. And obviously we're going to have just enough thread sticking through there that we can grab the new nut and stick it on there and tighten that down once it's up and in. And of course, obviously we're going to have to bolt it using the factory bolt down below. So let's go ahead and get it mounted up. All right, guys, so we have these two parts started up top here. Go ahead and put it up into place above. And then line this up below, and we'll use our factory bolt and nut down here. All right, I'll get this piece on first, followed by the rubber bushing that fits inside of it. All right, guys, now you're gonna need an 18 mil tool up here. I've got a ratcheting wrench, which is perfect for this kind of job, or you could use a regular crescent wrench. All right, now to tighten up down here, remember it's 17 millimeters on both sides. Then repeat this for the passenger side. All right, guys, that pretty much wraps up this installation. Now, a couple of things we always want to remind our viewers of is that we always recommend you get an alignment done after having any suspension or steering work done on your truck or vehicle. Also, make sure you're torquing all of the nuts and bolts to spec, either the specs provided by Rough Country or the specs specified by the manufacturer of the vehicle itself, Toyota. And one last thing I want to call out is with any time we're putting on a lift kit and suspension components, it's recommended that within 300 to 500 miles, go around and check all the fittings, make sure none of the nuts or bolts have come loose during that time. And this is not a permanent installation on this vehicle, so we did not use any Loctite or anything like that, although I recommend using that on the nuts and bolt fittings that come in the lift kit. So that pretty much wraps up this review and install of this Rough Country 3.5-inch bolt-on suspension lift kit with lifted struts in premium N3 shocks for all 07 and later Toyota Tundra 4-wheel drives, except the TRD Pro Edition. For all things Tundra, keep it here at ExtremeTerrain.com.